Fort Valley, I'm going to look at you. There's my camera. My camera's right there? Okay, that's my camera. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to apologize to Fort Valley. Those guys from Howard, they might have rubbed the salt in the wound a little bit. That'll be the game of the year. Somebody got to win eventually. I don't know. They might just end up playing a 0-0 tie for. Welcome to the SIAC preview. No, it can't be the preview show.
No, it can't be the preview show.
It's the SIAC weekly review.
All right. I'm not sure what week, but still, we're reviewing stuff. Let's put it that way.
We're reviewing SIAC football here on HBCU Game Day. I am Sylvester Williams. They call me Sly the Sports Guy, and I am joined by the one and only Jamie Walker.
How you doing? Jamie Walker. You can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, SportVoiceJW, SportVoiceJW.
That's him. Send all complaints to him or me. I don't care. You know I answer. I will answer, and I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, it has been another great week of SIAC football, and we're going to break down some of the things here this week on SIAC football. Let's break down some of the games. We started off with a great one. Clark Atlanta versus Fort Valley. Clark Atlanta versus Fort Valley. It was Thursday night on ESPN2, national audience. They brought out the big guns. They had Tiffany and Jay calling the game. What did you think about that game, Jamie?
First of all, phenomenal atmosphere. When you're talking about everything that the AUC encompasses, that is the type of atmosphere you always want, and that was always the atmosphere that Clark Atlanta deserves in general. You're talking about, old school AUC when you had Morris Brown in effect and, in their heyday, but you're talking about when the big production is out there. And first of all, it is a phenomenal HBCU game. It's a top-notch game when Tiff and Jay is in the house.
There you go.
So there it is, man. But the game itself, man, lived up to the billing. Because I'm going to tell you what, when it comes to Thursday night HBCU games in particular, they have a lot for the imagination, a lot to be desired. And they're typically not good just because of everything that goes on. But this game kind of filled every desire that you had when it comes to football in general. You had suspense, you had atmosphere, you had two teams, scratching and clawing. You got the likes of Teddy Keaton that has turned the program around. Can you do it again? And you got, Marlon Watson trying to fill the shoes of a proud program at Fort Valley, coming in his first year and doing some things in the previous game. And showing what he's able to do. I just love what you saw. First-year quarterbacks at the helm. It gave you all the suspense you could ask for.
It did. It was a great game, great atmosphere. And, we'll get a final score. Clark Atlanta, 26-21. But here's the thing, Jamie. I said it in a tweet. It wasn't a win for Clark Atlanta. I think it was a win for the SIAC. And it was a win for HBCU football in general because, like you said, it was a Thursday night. You were on national TV, 1.3 million views. I think that may be the highest viewed HBCU game all year. I think it may have more than the SWAC MEAC. The SWAC MEAC Challenge might have had more. I'm not quite sure. Throw that to the analysts and let them figure it out. But, it's a big-time game. All of Clark Atlanta, the student section showed up. They showed out. Both bands were there. It's the atmosphere you wanted. And like I said, that was a win, not only for Clark, it was a win for the whole SIAC and HBCU football in general. So, great game. Now, even though Clark won, Fort Valley, I'm going to look at you. There's my camera. My camera's right there? Okay, that's my camera. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to apologize to Fort Valley. On our preview show, I said Fort Valley had 7 games on national TV and 7 games, they were going to take 7 butt cuttings on national TV. Now, I said that, a little bit reckless with my tongue. I said it, and I got to see Clark Atlanta play the first week 0, down at the Iron Bowl, Legion Field, at Legion Field. And Coach Watson, I ran into Coach Watson. Coach Watson was like, hey, man, we got something. I'm glad you don't know what we got. but we got something and we gonna be ready. And I was like, yeah, okay, coach. I heard coaches speak before. As I'm at Legion Field, the Clark game was over. I'm leaving the game, trying to catch the elevator down. I run into the AD Johnson. She says, wait a minute, hold on. You said something about my Fort Valley.
She said, wait a minute, let me finish.
Let me finish. She said, you said something about my Fort Valley. She said, we're going to be all right. She said, Fort Valley is the premier institute in the state of Georgia. Premier. She said, I'm going to have you down here, and I'm going to show you how well Fort Valley is, and I'm going to show you how well we're going to do it on the field. Fort Valley came up a little bit short against Clark, but they gave a great effort. They had a freshman quarterback come out there. Last year, he was playing 3A ball. Came out there, had an excellent game. He was 21 for 26. I want to say around 150 yards passing. He had 140 yards rushing. He played a great game, just came up a little bit short. But shout out to Fort Valley.
Absolutely. Don Hudson played a phenomenal game. When you're talking about someone coming in on national TV, as you said, and coming out and showing off. And it wasn't, because I think his first 4 passes, 4 for 4 yards. I think they mentioned it on TV. But his ability to be able to move the chains and just their brain trust. You got to understand who their offensive coordinator is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Satellite, Willie Totten.
They got legends on the
another
sideline.
good Blue Fire brother. Got to mention that when it comes to Marlon Watson and everyone. But just their ability to keep him calm. And he looked poised. Even though it wasn't going completely the way they may have wanted, he still steered the course and kind of kept them and did keep them in the game and put them in position to win the thing. He did everything you can ask for an 18-year-old to do his first game start.
Out of Peach County. They got some good football down there.
They do.
They got some good football down there. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. The next one, Benedict went all the way up to Wilberforce, Ohio, and took on Central State. Score 10-0. Benedict comes away with the win. Most boring game of the week, maybe.
Listen, as long as you have more than the other team at the end of the night, hey, boring is boring. It is what it is.
Well,
But Benedict is hard to explain because I actually thought their offense would be better than what it is now. Although the defense, you know, when you're talking about media days and all of the things, those were the people that were highlighted. You thought their offense in the second year would be better because I thought they had decent enough quarterbacks to come into the season, and the offense just has not turned it on yet. It has not caught up to where the defense is. But give them kudos. Give Coach Dickerson, you know, his props. They are playing really good ball on the defensive side. I don't know if you can continue keeping that up going forward. So not sure if Benedict, you know, is – they're not a complete team right now, but they're winning football games, and that's all you can ask for.
All you got to do is score more than the other team.
There it is.
And that's what they're doing. And shout out to that defense. Like you said, that defense, the defense is playing. Defense pitched 2 shutouts already. I mean, they're holding down their end. They're holding down their end. Need the offense to step up a little bit more if you're Benedict. Now we'll move on to the next one. The Mighty Men of Morehouse. They went up to New York. They went to New York and they played Howard. Not quite sure why they play that game, but they do play it. They did show up. Somebody showed up. Somebody showed up. They played Howard. Howard ended up winning that game 38-10. They played at Jet Stadium, so I guess it was a great experience to be in the NFL stadium. But
look, in Bougie Bowl 4,
the
alumni love to see it. No, first of all, they do a phenomenal job. First of all, they broadcast it well. They on you know, another way. I think HBCU go at it. And so when you're talking about just the promotion and all the things that happen, you got to talk about 2 phenomenal alumni bases that were in New York to see that ball game. You know, they had all the pomp and circumstance. But I got to give props to Morehouse for a few. They were in that ball game for a long time. And then just whenever you have Division I versus Division II, you're talking about the majority, the more scholarships and all the things that goes along with it. the war of attrition eventually happens. Now, what you didn't see that it was in last year's Clark Atlanta, but the Cookman game. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of how it goes a lot of the times. And so I think at the end, Howard was able to just impose their will on Morehouse and pull it out right there at the end. I think, they scored a late touchdown to make it 38-10, but, and might be under some controversy. I've heard some people talk earlier, you got to stop him at the end of the day. But Morehouse had a pretty good showing. They just have to collect themselves offensively. Defensively, I think they did a really good job. Mm-hmm. It was, Howard is a team that loves running the football. They're able to do a couple of things offensively. They haven't been the offensive juggernaut that they've been in the last few days, but they have some pieces. You're talking about Eden James and company. But I'll give props to, close is only horseshoes, hand grenades.
Horseshoes and hand grenades.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I think you're talking about a team that's coming along, and you can't give them the grief that you've been giving them. You can, Sly. You're gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it anyway, man. But I can say though, those guys from Howard, they might have rubbed the salt in the wound a little bit. You're up 31-10 with a minute left, and you get the ball inside the 10, and instead of taking the knee, they went on ahead and punched it on in the end zone for another score. Now, a lot of people say they may be running the score up. That may be unsportsmanlike or whatever you want to call it. But my thing is, if I dress out a kid, that kid's supposed to play. If that kid is playing, I'm not going to put him in the game to kneel down. I'm going to put him in the play to run a play. I'm going to run a play to the end of the game, to that whistle blows. It's your job to stop me. They didn't stop him. So it depends on who you are. Is it running up the score? Is it just continuing to coach your team and to coach your team up? So here we go. Speaking of running up the score, let's go to the next one. The next one, Jackson State versus Tuskegee. Jackson State versus Tuskegee, 30-0. Jackson State pitched a shutout. Now, Jackson State, number one ranked team in most HBCU Division I polls, playing Tuskegee. Tuskegee, started off the year 2-0, pretty decent start to the year. But they played against Jackson State. I mean, not too many people coming in the game except Kendrick. Kendrick's probably the only D2 HBCU football. Yes. He's probably the only person who expected Tuskegee to compete in this game. But Jackson State just went on ahead and put them out their misery. Now, depends on who you ask. You talk to some of the Jackson State people, they're like, yeah, we just played our second string players, but still, they went out there and kind of had their way with Tuskegee.
This is always a conversation when it comes to Jackson State, and I think I've kind of addressed this before and other stuff. Jackson State is one of those squads that, out of all the HBCU FCS teams, you're talking about a team that's able to actively recruit trench players at will. So much so that they lean on you when it comes to what they do. When you talk about Coach T.C. Taylor, being the head coach and play caller, they have enough players to be able to, especially to Division II teams, to lean on them. And so I think that's what you saw when it came to Jackson State. Not that they have such an intricate offensive plan, especially against those squads, but they do what they do and they do it well, which is to run the football, timely passing, and their size on both sides of the line of scrimmage always does it. I don't think Tuskegee necessarily had the horses to compete, and that's what you saw in this ballgame.
And that's what you saw. Well, we're going to stay in the state of Alabama. We're going to go over to their rival, Miles. Miles went up to Alabama State. They went to Montgomery. Should have stayed in Fairfield. 37-9. Miles still hadn't got off the slide yet. It's been a tough open of the season for Miles.
Very much so, man. I called the Edward Waters Miles game last week, and you have some remaining parts with that ball club, but you're talking about a very young and inexperienced squad overall. You got the likes of Cameron Ivory, Gennaro Scott, but when you're talking about past that, it's not much. You're talking about almost an all freshman offensive line. You're talking about college football. And, a lot of the players are brand new. Coach Gould is still trying to coach these fellas up, and a valiant effort, especially in the second half. But when it comes to Andrew Body and that entire Alabama State squad, that's another squad that does what they do well.
Mm-hmm.
They run the football. Andrew Body, I think, was 14 or 16 for over 300 yards. He played a phenomenal game. They ran the football with the likes of Ligon and others. And they were just able to run the football, and they played defense well in general. So when you're talking about being shorthanded in general, Miles just could not. It wasn't a few years ago when they had a squad and went in there and won the ball game. Different squad. And these kids know each other as well.
Yeah.
You're talking about some familiar faces. Alabama State was up for this game. And so, the final score kind of indicated how the game went.
All right, well, we'll go to the next one. The next one, Lane traveled to Columbia, South Carolina to play Allen, and Allen came out with the win, 29-21. Allen gets off the skid. Now, Allen picks up a win, and surprisingly, what a lot of people don't know, this Allen team leads the conference in offense.
Listen, man, give Coach Pearl his props. We talked about this squad in the beginning, and even though they have a lot of unknowns, there's a couple of knowns. Jameer Dismute said the quarterback position is one of those knowns. And so when you're talking about someone leading the conference in passing, they do it well. They are able to be timely in their approach. They played Morehead State pretty well a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lane is I saw them play Lincoln of Missouri, saw them on tape. And they're coming along, but they're not nearly where they're supposed to be. And that ended up being a closer game than I thought it would be. And so when you can score the football, it's just one of those things where you have a fighting chance. Now, going forward, will they knock some of these teams in the upper echelon of the SIAC off? Who knows? As you gain more experience, you never know what may happen. So it's one of those things where Allen just keeps on getting better. But you got to understand the losses of personnel when it comes to players. You got to understand. So some of them in Atlanta still.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Coach Pearl is still developing this team and still has to be given some more time just to get them together. And
that's the thing. I think Allen is a team that's going to shock some people. They're going to catch somebody off guard. They're going to catch somebody off guard because they have some talent there, and especially on that offensive side of the ball. They have talent on that offensive side of the ball. So you may catch somebody off guard when you mess with those Yellow Jackets down in Columbia. All right, we'll go to the next one. Florida A&M, Albany State visiting Florida A&M. I don't want to say any names, but you had a coach who was a pretty big man on campus down there at Florida A&M.
Very much so.
Pretty big man on campus down in Florida A&M. So I think it would have been the greatest thing ever for Quinn Gray to go down there and knock off Florida A&M. But he couldn't do it. Florida A&M, they ended up winning 33-25. But Albany State had a lead for a lot of that game. They had a lead the early part of that game, and they gave Florida A&M everything they wanted, everything. Despite the scholarship difference and despite the roster difference, Albany State is a very experienced football team. You're talking about, 20-some-odd starters coming back. Mm-hmm. So they went in probably the more experienced squad. Yep. So it wasn't a thing of them just being, okay, here's another D2 squad coming in. They came in one of the higher-ranked squads within HBCU football in general. And so when you're talking about Isaiah Knowles, when you talk about Tion Weiss, you're talking about a squad that comes in, with a really good offensive game plan. They throw the ball outside, throw to their tight ends, they run the football effectively. They come in with a defense that's fully flying around that dirty blue. Listen, it was one of those things. If you predicted that Albany State would win the football game, it wasn't far-fetched at all. But FAMU has pieces. Played a couple of quarterbacks. They're able to run the football as well. They have parts when you talk about that, Franklin and others. They came in the much ballyhooed team, even though there was some questions coming in with those losses that they had, but they still had parts, especially on the defensive end. They're playing better defensively because when you look at it, barring the Division I squad they played, you're talking about, when they went against Howard,
Howard didn't do much scoring against them at all. So their defense came in playing well. It was just a matter of making sure that the offense got cooking. But give credit to Albany State, again, going back to the hand grenade, reference. Lost the football game, but definitely a good showing for a couple of different reasons, I believe anyway. And we won't talk. Well, you know what?
I'll talk about it.
I will address it.
I'll say it.
Because Commissioner Holloman has always talked about sometimes, hey, they're coaches picked out of the SIAC that go on to these different jobs. We've seen that last year with the likes of Miles losing their coach to Alabama A&M. So in some people's eyes, this may be an audition because Quinn Gray, I'm sure, is pleased and happy at Albany State. But if you're in this profession, some people want to try the challenge of going up to a different division. And the likes of his school, his alma mater, and him coaching that, I'm sure is intriguing to him. So whether this may be an audition game, who knows? We'll see how it pans out going forward with FAMU and the rest of their season. But I'm sure there was some thoughts of that going into this ball game.
Somebody was thinking it. I know I was. I know I was. I was thinking it, Anytime you get an opportunity to show your skills, show your skills to somebody who possibly could be a future employer. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? So you go out there and you give it your best shot. You do what you got to do. Came up a little short. Didn't work out for him. But, hey, he's on the radar down there. He's on the radar, and not necessarily down there. We talk about Florida A&M, him being on the radar of Florida A&M. Florida A&M still has a coach. So
absolutely.
Technically, but auditioning like that, coaching like that, puts you on the radar for some other places because there are other coaches around the nation who are on the hot seat.
You got to understand, he came from Memphis down to Albany State. He's one of those people that has been around and been exposed and, got his first head coaching opportunity at Albany State. Now, again, when you're talking about the business of sport, those kinds of things occur and happen. Hey, Tremaine Jackson is at Prairie View A&M, leaving Valdosta State. So you have the likes of moving around and things of that nature. So, again, and I like Coach Cozy at FAMU. Like him, love his demeanor. I always love the conversations we've been able to have. But again, it's a business and a results-based business. So at the end of the day, if the results aren't happening and the alumni base wants you gone, it is what it is. But kudos to Coach Gray. Hey, and that team is still cooking. They're one of the upper echelon teams in Division II and HBCUs.
There you go. So we'll move on to the next one. And this one I like to call the robbery of the week. One that was stolen. One that was somebody checked the ref bank account of the week. My goodness. Kentucky State went down to Grambling, Louisiana, and almost pulled one out. They didn't, but we'll say it again, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Grambling takes out Kentucky State 37-31 in overtime. How that game ended was just terrible. Kentucky State had it in overtime in the Kansas City shootout. They're running the ball. The guy is covered by 5 or 6 Grambling players. He's being pushed back. He's been stood up, taken around for at least 5-6 seconds. No call, no whistle. And then a Grambling guy pops out with the ball, runs 70 yards for a touchdown into the ball game. Terrible.
Very much so, man. When you're talking about, first of all, kudos to Kentucky State because at the beginning of the year, and we're going to talk about a little bit of that later, they were one of those sleeper squads that I've always had because of what they're able to do and those skill position guys. But I got to give credit to that defense as well. They flew around, and Grambling had to go and regroup to get themselves together offensively. And I didn't think they would have the requisite size to go up against Grambling. But again, kudos to Kentucky State standing toe-to-toe with that squad. Yep. They were able to stop them, especially the running game. Wasn't able to get off. And T-Set, quarterback of Grambling State, made some plays. But as far as being able to stop their running game, they did well early and scored early as well. I think, the likes of Jaden Hale, Not sure I don't think he came back into the ball game, but the reach early in the game trying to get into the end zone, got hurt on the play. But you could see that Kentucky State was not afraid at all.
Not at all.
And I told somebody, Coach Huggins is from that area.
Yes.
And so I'm sure he got his boys up to play this game, and he recruits heavily out of that area.
Exactly.
So these boys know each other. I know we talk about Kentucky and, you think it being so far away from Louisiana, but no, Coach Huggins, if you look at, how the makeup of their team, he recruits heavily out of the area. So they got up for this game.
They did, man. And I hate to see a game end that way. I hate to see it end that way, but it does. Once the referee makes that decision, it is what it is. I'm not sure if they reviewed that play or if it was reviewable. I don't know if that play was reviewable. But if you have instant replay, that's one you got to use it for. That is one you have to use it for. But Kentucky State, they'll end up with the L. They got to take the L, and they got to take that long bus ride back home to Frankfurt and take that L. Well, we got one game left. One game left in the SIAC, and I think it might have been the best game in the SIAC this week. The one that, let's set the stage.
Okay.
It's a SIAC versus the CIAA rivalry game right here. Not a rivalry game because those two aren't rivals, but it's a conference rivalry game.
Absolutely.
All right, you got a conference rivalry game. And as a matter of fact, the series is tied up 3-3. 3-3. SIAC won 3 games, CIAA won 3 games. This one is the tiebreaker. This is the one that puts you over the top to see which conference is the best. Stephen Gaither, which conference is the best? I'm calling you out. I'm talking to you. We had this conversation. I'm talking to you. The SIAC, Edward Waters taking on Virginia Union. Game, back and forth game. I think it went in the halftime tied. Edward Waters kind of jumped out to a lead in the second half, but then Virginia Union fought back, tied the game up, 38-all, going into it with almost no time left on the clock. Field goal to win the ball game. The kids from Duval pull out the win. Doesn't get much better than that.
Phenomenal contest, man. Phenomenal contest, because going into this ball game, there were some questions as far as could the passing game of Edward Waters be stopped by the defense of Virginia Union. And in contrast, could the Edward Waters defense stop the running game of Virginia Union, Curtis Allen? Because quite frankly, Virginia Union, name a few other schools in the HBCU ranks, but they are right up there when it comes to running back you. And so, replacing Jada Byers with Curtis Allen, who got plenty of touches last year in compliment to Jada Byers. But when you're talking about a team that is able to run the football effectively, my only question was, and I asked this question, social media and shows and other things, could the passing game, R.J. Rosales, be able to throw the ball enough to complement that running game that they have? And they did. It was just one of those things that the running game, it will always be what they do and what they continue to do. And so, the scoring for Virginia Union came in bunches as well. They took their punches in the second half, but then came back. But Edward Waters, man, right now, and I think you talked about it, and we're going to review this at the end, but they were one of your sleeper squads. They were one of mine too, even with the coaching change, so last minute and so late within what they did. They still had a lot of the same, I guess, attitude and persona going into the season. When you're talking about Coach Brian Jenkins, man, listen, he has that team cooking right now.
They're cooking.
The first 3-0 start in play. They're cooking, man.
They are cooking, man. And one thing I like what they're doing. That offense is working. The offense is moving around right here. Noah Budden had 283 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. The running back, Thomas Jontavious Thomas. I couldn't pronounce that name. There you go. But yeah, he had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. That offense is cooking. They are cooking. They are moving and grooving. And Edward Waters is scary. Now they're building confidence up. Now they have confidence. And plus, and I say this, they play on a weak schedule. They're playing, to be honest, they're playing a weak schedule.
I was looking at a show, man, and analyzing the rest of their schedule. I think the only opponent that they have within the upper echelon of the conference is Clark Atlanta.
And they get a bye week coming into Clark. It's a bye week coming into Clark. So that is they have a very favorable schedule, to end this. And I think this might be the year. And technically, I think Edward Waters has only been they've been a member of the SIAC for, I think, 5 years now, but they've only been eligible for the playoffs and stuff for like 2 maybe. I'm not sure. I think it's 2 that they've only been eligible for the playoffs. So this is huge. That win is kind of a program-defining win for Edward Waters. They've never had a victory as big as this. They've never had eyes on them like they have eyes on them now. So that was a huge win for Edward Waters, and it is scary. They're scary.
Very scary, man, because you got to think about what they've been able to collect. They've had some good teams in spots, but they've never had this complete of a squad and playing well. Now, hopefully they can keep it up because, again, the SIAC, hey, every single Saturday, it may be something. But they have the requisite, and you talked about it, the balance that they have. They could either run the ball or pass the ball, but they have the ability to do both. And so, and let's talk about the defense. On that back end, that was one of the worries coming in as well. But you got the likes of David Law Mortimer, who played well again yesterday. He was, one of the SIAC superlatives a couple of weeks ago. Man, they are cooking with gas right now. So give them props.
It should be a pretty awesome rest of the season for Edward Waters. Now, Jamie, what we're going to do, Jamie, we made some predictions and we made some picks early in the season. We made predictions early in the season. So now we're going to kind of look at some of these early picks that we made, and we want to see where everybody falls in at now. We pretty much the same. The bottom, we pretty much kind of agree with the bottom except my Fort Valley pick. I had Fort Valley at 11 down there, and I think I'm going to change my mind on that one, but we'll talk about that. But what are you surprised about in your picks?
Savannah State.
Savannah State.
And the season still is, you still got a long way to go. But Savannah State so far, I guess that loss to Edward Waters kind of set back, what I thought that team would be. But again, if you look at the Aaron Kelton era, it has been they've played well either in the beginning or at the end. And so putting together a season of consistency has been the only trouble with that. So we'll see how their season kind of ends because they have the talent. I think they have the talent, especially, in the skill positions, but also defensively as well. Edward Waters just may be a juggernaut. So we'll see what happens. We got a long way to go. That's my only surprise.
Okay, well, let's go at rankings. We'll start with you. Your new rankings so far? If you had to put out your rankings now, let's see what you got right here.
Well, you see the screen. Albany State still up there. Clark Atlanta, my number 2. Edward Waters at 3, but we got a long way to go. That could flip, and they play each other. Tuskegee, still unsure about them. Saw them in the Red Tails Classic and beating Winston-Salem State. And so I thought they would be, up there, but and I think they are still one of the better teams. Benedict, I want to see what their offense is going to be.
I don't know.
I don't know what they are. Kentucky State, Fort Valley, Savannah State is who I talked about earlier. Allen is going to get somebody. Allen is going to pick off somebody because they can score the football. Miles, we talked about them and them being so young. Central State is kind of Central State and Morehouse is kind of neck and neck in. I think they get better as the season goes along because Central State is playing pretty good defense, but when you have no offense, your defense eventually is gonna fade. You've been on the field a long time, and so them scoring is a problem. Morehouse and Inlane. is who I have.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and throw up my picks, man. Surprise, surprise. Albany State #1. Nobody shocked by that one right there. Nobody shocked. But #2, I got Edward Waters as #2. And I got Edward Waters for what Edward Waters is doing on offense. Edward Waters took out Virginia Union. They're 3-0. Edward Waters, no choice but to be #2 for me. Clark Atlanta, I got Clark Atlanta at #3. I moved them down. They were #2 to start the season for me. Moved them down. They're winning. I think they should have won the game against Valdosta State, but they didn't. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, ain't did anything for nobody. I got Tuskegee at 4. I got Tuskegee at 4 because they've won. They've won, and it's hard to count that game. It's hard to count that game last week against Jackson State. You don't really want to count that against them because Jackson State is just so good. Benedict, I have him at 5, and I'm kind of confused about Benedict because I have no idea what Benedict does on offense. I don't have any idea who Benedict is on offense, but I still have him at 5. Now, my surprise is Fort Valley. I have Fort Valley at 6, and they're 0-2. They're 0-2, but I have them all the way at 6 because the 2 losses that they've had, their defense has shown up great. They have played good. That first game against West Alabama, they had a great defensive showing and absolutely no offense. The second game, that offense showed up. The defense showed up, but just couldn't hold toward the end. Fort Valley's good. And I was wrong on Fort Valley. They are good. Kentucky State was our sleeper. I always had Kentucky State as a sleeper. Just their offense moves the ball. Their offense does what you want, but their defense doesn't stop anybody. They don't stop anybody. Savannah State, I got them at 8. Made a mistake there. I should have put Allen at 8 and Savannah State at 9. Should have put Allen at 8 and Savannah State at 9, but I didn't. And for all the people who think I hate Morehouse, they're not in the doghouse. They're not last. They're not last because Morehouse, you said it earlier, Morehouse has a pretty good defense. Their defense is pretty solid, but their offense does absolutely nothing. Their offense helps in no way whatsoever. So that's why they are what they are. Central State, they have shown that at least they have a football team. You know, they've shown they have a football, not a good one, but they have one. Lane is Lane. You know, they are what they are. Lane, if Lane ever becomes top 10, that's cause for celebration at Lane. And Miles, it is going to be a long year in Fairfield. It'll be a long year in Fairfield. I don't see Miles winning a game. I don't know. Miles plays Lane.
I'll check their schedule.
I got to check the schedule. I got to check the schedule. If Miles plays Lane, that'll be the game of the year. Somebody got to win eventually. I don't know. They might just end up playing a 0-0 tie for, it might go on the triple, quadruple.
Go stepping.
What's 13 druple overtime?
Go stepping over lines.
Am I line step? I'm line stepping.
You are. I can't move my leg that well.
Okay. Habitual line step.
Yes, you are.
Well, somebody got to win if they play Miles. Somebody got to win. So eventually they'll get a win. Well, there you have it so far. Now, we want to kind of look into next week. Who do we have coming up next week? A lot of games on tap. And shout out to the SIAC network. Shout out to the SIAC network putting everything up, having the games where we can watch the games.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that if I'm calling the game here, during the commercial breaks, I can go and click on the SIAC network and see exactly what's going on in some of these games, or even go and rewatch some of the games that I've missed. Man, shout out to the schools putting everything up on the SIAC network. That is big time.
Yes, it is.
That is big time. Well, we're going to start off next week. Ooh, do we have the right schedule up? September 18th. Tuskegee plays Benedict on a Thursday night. Tuskegee at Benedict on a Thursday night. How you feel about that?
Wow. First of all, good game.
Yeah.
Because I think no one expected Benedict to be what they are right now. I just think if they can't get, are we predicting as well? Or just previewing. I mean, because it's one of those things where if Tuskegee gets on a roll and scores a little bit, can Benedict match what their scoring prowess is? That's the only question for me, because they'll be able to stop Tuskegee on certain things. When you're talking about a team that's able to run the football, Tuskegee is that squad with a 2 to 3-headed monster running football, and then you got the likes of Beal, playing quarterback. He makes plays as well, so it'll be interesting.
We'll pick.
Okay,
Give me a pick.
Tuskegee. I think Tuskegee won that
I'm
game.
going to go against you. I'm going to say Benedict.
Whoa.
I'm going to say Benedict.
Okay, you Columbia
Hey, man,
native.
I got to stick with the home team. I got to stick with my home team. Central State versus Morgan State. I think it's pretty much easy to say Morgan State on that one. I don't think we got too much of. Kentucky State versus Morehouse at Morehouse.
I think I called that game the last time Kentucky State was in town. And I think the same outcome will happen. I think they just have, even though we talked about Morehouse's defense, I think Kentucky State has a little bit too much firepower, even though I'm curious to see from an injury standpoint what they look like. Because for a lot of teams, when they play up, sometimes they don't come out the same way. So going into this next week, curious to see what Kentucky State looks like. But they stood toe-to-toe defensively with Grambling last week. So I don't think they'll have a problem with Morehouse if they are healthy.
Well, that's one of the things where schedule works out, schedule happens. If you play a team like Grambling, when you go up and play a Grambling, it's always good to come down and play Morehouse, I stepped over the line again.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's
Well, I'm going to say Kentucky State's going to win this.
Okay.
You're going to say Kentucky?
I'm going to say the same thing.
There you go. Savannah State versus Miles. I would say Savannah State because I don't think Miles has anything.
It's hard for me to say they don't have anything because they do have players in parts. But I think, it's hard for me to say they are progressively getting better, but I do think the resident experience with this new coaching staff, I think they're coaching them up, man, but it's so hard right now for them to see any success just based on who they're playing. They have a tough schedule. You got to think about who they're playing, man, the likes of playing in that Hall of Fame game, then turning around and playing the offensive juggernaut of Edward Waters, and then moving forward. Man, it's hard.
Hey, man, you said they don't have anything. Hey, I got 2 feet, but I can't beat Usain Bolt in a race. So just because you got something, that don't mean it mean anything.
This is true.
That don't mean nothing. All right, Fort Valley State taking on Delta State. I think Fort Valley gets off the slide. I know Delta State is always a tough team. I know Delta State, tough program, traditionally tough. But I think Fort Valley will figure it out because their defense, I believe in their defense, and I think they found what they need in a quarterback. I think they found their quarterback, and I think they're ready to go. I'm going to go Fort Valley.
I love the matchup because I think, Coach Watson, it didn't have anything to do with the schedule. But I think he's not afraid of taking the challenge. Delta State is one of the premier teams in D2. I don't know so much this year, but I'm just talking about years past. And they've already played the likes of West Alabama. So it's one of those things where they're unafraid to step outside the conference and play. So it's hard to pick. I'm going to go with Fort Valley, man, going into this because I think even though, again, we talk about losses not meaning anything and, being close not meaning anything, I think they are getting the resident experience to go up against anyone. So I like them.
Yep. Delta State coming in the game at 2-1. They had a loss. They're coming off a loss against UNC Pembroke. So they're coming off a loss. So Delta State will be hungry. Both teams coming off a loss. But I'm going to go ahead and say Fort Valley. I'm going to say Fort Valley. All right, now you got Edward Waters taking on Bethune-Cookman. A little bit of, we talked about coaches auditioning for a job a little bit earlier. You got Coach Jenkins, who was at Bethune-Cookman and won 4 MEAC championships at Bethune. Now he'll be coaching against Bethune this time. Hey.
Man, they'll be up for this game.
They'll be
up
ready.
for this game. Clark Atlanta has already laid the blueprint.
Yes.
And so Bethune-Cookman's already playing a couple of quarterbacks. They had a pretty good scoring show against South Carolina State last week. I don't know if, without looking at that game in its entirety, I don't know if they just got those points at the back end of the game or not. But, they could, you have Cameron Ransom and you have whoever their backup quarterback is coming in. They can score the ball again. They have those scholarships, but it means absolutely nothing because I think Edward Waters it's their time. And I think they know each other. You're talking about two Florida squads in the same general area. And so Edward Waters will be up for this game. I think Bethune-Cookman may have, may have some, they'll be tight for this one because they already have the sense of what that's like losing to a Division II squad. So I think, man, I'm gonna pick Edward Waters in this. Good friend Brian Fulford, has talked about it and put it on wax already. That he says Bethune-Cookman loses this game. I'm gonna echo his sentiments.
I'm gonna go with you and Brian. I'm gonna say Edward Waters. I'm gonna say Edward Waters because I like what Edward Waters does on offense. Bethune-Cookman is not shown that they were a strong defensive team. Now you play South Carolina State. South Carolina State, premier team in the MEAC. So, it's hard to stop them. So, but still, with what Edward Waters has done on offense, I do believe that Edward Waters can take out Bethune-Cookman. All right, now we have Clark Atlanta versus Allen. They'll be going to Allen. Clark Atlanta coming off a win. Allen coming off a win. Here's the scary part. A lot of people on paper, they're going to say, yeah, Clark Atlanta should win this. Clark Atlanta should win this. But Allen has a great offense. Jameer Dismukes leading the conference in passing, but he's also a great rusher. He's a kid who can take it down and run with the ball. What did Clark struggle with last week? They had a young freshman out there who could run the ball. He took it down and ran. So now you have a problem. You have a problem. Can you stop that multi-talented quarterback? It'll be a tough one, but I just think Clark has a little bit too many guns, and I think Clark will take them.
I think that's where you're at too, because I think Clark is still working on the offensive kinks. Even though they're scoring points, I think the offensive balance within what they're trying to do, because again, when you think of Teddy Keaton and think of their offenses in the past, throwing the ball around, flying around, they're able to do kind of both. They got a two-headed monster in the backfield. I would beg to say three-headed monster in the backfield. And they're still able to throw the ball outside as well. I think what'll happen in this game in particular is they're going to take the air out of the ball and disallow Jameer Dismukes to run. Because I think Don Hudson did a phenomenal job for Fort Valley showing that you can run on this defense. LC Cole will have something to say about this game going in.
Sounds good. So you got Clark, I got Clark. All right, and the weekly go and pick up your check game, Lane taking on Alabama A&M. You got Lane pulling up the upset?
See, man,
Huh?
I'm not going to step over the line as you would. However, no. Lane has some building to do. And this is a lesson game for them. So, it'll be quite a challenge. No one is invincible. However, I'm gonna stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to.
Well, I think this is a good game. I think this is a good game for former SIAC Coach of the Year, Sam Shade. It's a good game for him to find out what some of his backups can do. He'll let some of the third stringers play, some of those freshmen who will probably redshirt this year. It's the fourth game, so he may be able to get them in and not affect their red shirt. So that's what you'll see a lot in this game. You'll see a lot of second string, third string getting ready and playing in this game, because if he puts his first string out there, it could get very ugly. Respectfully.
Respectfully.
Yes. That's the most disrespectful thing you can say. So we put respectfully on the end of
That
it.
you have to add
You gotta add
respect.
respect. So, hopefully, Lane can make a good showing. I just don't think they will. I don't think they will. Well, that's the SIAC week in review, man. I'm not quite sure how to end this, man. We need some theme music or something.
We do need some theme music, man. We need to give it a name too. The SIAC quarterly report. What?
Quarterly report?
You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, somebody called me after we did our first show and said, hey, y'all need to do this every week. Well, we're busy. You know,
man.
We
Got
call
stuff to do.
games, it's all kinds of stuff. We're glad that you're tuning in, though. We love it because between me and Sly, you know, we love analyzing the SIAC.
We love it, and you're getting the tame version of what we say on the phone call.
This is true.
The phone, you're getting the tame version right here. But we need two things. We need a title of the show. We don't have a title of the show.
We don't.
We need a title of the show, and we need some theme music. Some of you producers out there, give us some theme music.
We'll take it.
You're not gonna get paid.
No, you're not.
You know, there's
You're not.
no
But
money.
But it's a great opportunity for
great
you to
up-
showcase your stuff on here.
Showcase your skills. Send it to us. Send us your theme music. Send it to either HBCU Game Day. Send it to Sport Voice JW.
Yes.
Or you can send it to Sly the Sports Guy. If you disagree with any of the statements that we made, send it to me on the internet. Send it to me. Send it to my inbox. Let me know. Tweet me. Let me know. Don't break it to my face. I'm a big boy. Break it to my face. But send it to me on the internet. Put it in our inbox, man. Put it on Twitter. Let us know, man. Let me know if you think I'm a genius, or let me know if you think I'm crazy.
Hey, besides the title, we'll take a title sponsor.
We will take a title sponsor.
Yes.
A title sponsor. You got someone, somebody, Chicken and Waffles, whoever.
Listen.
I don't care. If you want to be a title sponsor, reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Reach out to us.
Because like them poets said from New York, from Staten Island, cash rules everything around me.
Everything around me. And I guarantee you, if you somebody from Morehouse and you decide to sponsor me, I will never say another thing bad about Morehouse. I can be brought. I can be. Well, he's Jamie Walker. I'm Sylvester Williams. This is the blank.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time here on HBCU Game Day.